Okay. So these are the questions that are going to guide us today. We shall basically start with this question number 17. Now, whatever we go through, the aim is not to cram the answers, but to understand how certain questions can be answered. So it is more of helping us know the approach to certain questions and also guide us, remind us on what to read as we are revising for our final exams. So when you look at that question, now the first thing, whenever you're given questions like these ones, even if it looks to be one day, you don't have to panic, or you don't have to assume that because it is one day, definitely it has to be difficult. In most cases, one day questions are actually the easiest, because when they try to make them one day, they realize that all the answers have already been given. So it means that the first approach to this question is you first read through, you try to understand if it is involving an experiment, you ask yourself, how could this experiment have been done? Then you start brainstorming. You put yourself in the shoes of the person who could have collected the data. Then you try to ask yourself some few questions to help you memorize whether you still recall the biology that is behind such a question. Now, the question says that the kidney controls the amount of water in the body, which is a fact. The kidney does control very many things in the body. It controls the amount of water, it controls the amount of salts in the body, and it also removes toxic nitrogenous waste from the body. So all those are the functions of the kidney. Now the question would be, if they ask you to describe how the kidney controls the amount of water, do you still remember that biology? How the kidney plays the role of osmoregulation? Who can remind us, how does the kidney control the amount of water in the body? Who still remembers? And of course, if you have your notes with you there, feel free to open, look through, and see if you can identify the answer. So who can help us? How does the kidney control the amount of water in the body? Yes, Mercy?
When blood containing too much water passes near the brain tells the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland tells the hypothalamus to stimulate the ADH. So when ADH goes to the kidney.
First pause there. Well, now, when blood is passing through the brain, it is the hypothalamus that detects the concentration of the water in the blood, or the amount of water in the blood. It is the hypothalamus that does that. Then now it is the role of the hypothalamus to instruct the pituitary to release that hormone. The name of the hormone is ADH. That is antidiuretic hormone. So Marcia, you have to correct those facts. So Marcia, you can proceed.
The ADH is transported by blood to the kidney. When it reaches the kidneys, it makes the kidney walls or tubules be more permeable, hence losing more water, making the blood known to be dilute. But when the blood passing the brain is concentrated, the hypothalamus stimulates the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland to stimulate ADH, which is transported by blood to the kidney tubules to make them less permeable, hence reabsorbing more water back into blood.
Okay, thank you so much. So is that in the hypothalamus, which is part of the brain, is the one which plays a role of monitoring the amount of water in the blood passing through it. When the blood passing through it is very concentrated, in other words, is containing less amount of water, then now what the hypothalamus does, it instructs the pituitary gland to secrete or to release a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or you can even abbreviate it as ADH. Then this ADH moves to the kidneys. In the kidneys, it is going to increase the permeability of the nephron tubules to water. Therefore, instead of losing your water, instead of losing that water through the urine, much of it is going to be absorbed back into the bloodstream, hence trying to minimize the water loss from your body. Because the brain, the hypothalamus, has already detected that you actually don't have much water in the blood. Then when you have maybe drunk a lot of water, or immediately after drinking water, it means that blood passing through the hypothalamus will now be very dilute. And once the hypothalamus detects that the blood is dilute, it will instruct the pituitary gland to stop secreting ADH. And once there is no ADH in blood, then it means that the kidney tubules will not be permeable to water reabsorption. Therefore, you're going to lose much of the water through urine. So that is how the kidney controls the amount of water in the body. Then who can remind us, how does the kidney control the amount of salts in the body? Who can remind us? How does the kidney control the amount of salts in the body? Who can remind us? Hello, are people there? Yes, students, are we there? Or am I alone in the class?
We are there.
Hey, you try to check in the notes. What do your notes say about control of the sugar level of the salts in the body? Okay, so it means people are not revising. Or if you're revising, it simply means that perhaps maybe you are not having your books with you there, which you should always avoid. Always, when you have discussions, those discussions, for instance, you have to make sure that you have all the necessary sources with you there, so that you match, you relate with what the teacher is explaining to you, and also what you have in your notes. Okay, so the hormone responsible for regulating the iron concentration in your body, or maybe the sodium in particular, is aldosterone hormone. You must have heard it, aldosterone hormone. That is the hormone that is secreted in case you don't have enough sodium salts in your body. So that hormone is secreted, is released, and it is going to cause the kidney tubules to be more permeable to the absorption of sodium ions. Hence, you restore them in the body. That was a by the way. Now, still, you'll have to...
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes?
That hormone is excreted from where?
I beg your pardon?
That hormone is excreted from where? Have you heard?
I beg your pardon?
I was asking, what brings about the secretion of that hormone and the gland where it is excreted?
Oh, the gland where aldosterone is secreted.
Yeah, and what brings about it? Yeah, and what brings about it?
Oh, now the gland that secretes the hormone is the adrenal gland. Adrenal glands are found on your kidneys. The kidneys, they have that adrenal gland. So it is the adrenal gland that secretes aldosterone hormone. And what causes its secretion? It is that the moment blood passing through the hypothalamus, the moment the hypothalamus detects that your blood is too concentrated or your blood is lacking a lot, is too dilute. In other words, it is lacking sodium salts in particular, the sodium ions. Then it is going to trigger the adrenal glands to release aldosterone hormone, which will help you retain the sodium ions instead of losing them through the urine. Okay. Then now let us look at now this question, part A. Are we seeing the screen that I'm sharing?
Yes.
Not yet, teacher. Yes.
Okay. Now, part A is saying that the table shows the volume of water filtered from the blood and the volume of urine produced in 1 day. Then you're saying calculate the volume of water absorbed into the blood. So I want you to get a pen and a pencil and you try to attempt that. So put your answer in the chat.
Pardon?
So we are done.
Oh, sorry, I had already muted myself. Okay, so the question is asking us to calculate the volume of water that is reabsorbed back into the blood. So the 180 is the overall amount of water that is filtered into the urine. Then later, when the urine is released, we only find there 2 decimeter cubed of water. Now the question would be, how much of the water has been absorbed back into the body? Obviously, it is 180 minus 2 decimeters cubed. So it is 178. There is someone who had already given us 176. I don't know how they got that 176. Okay. Then so here you can clearly see that much of the water that is filtered into the urine is reabsorbed back into the body. Okay. Then part B, they're telling us that the bar chart below, so they have given us a bar chart, and mind you, in biology, they can even give you data and they ask you to plot a bar chart or a bar graph. They can give you data and ask you to plot a histogram. They can give you data and they ask you to plot a graph. So don't cram it that whenever they ask you to plot a graph, it must be a line graph, these normal graphs. Or maybe if you find I've asked you to plot a histogram, you say, in biology, we have never learned anything about histograms. They can ask you to plot any graph in biology. Okay, so now let us also try to understand what this question is about. So we have just a moment. Okay, so we have, they are saying that the bar chart below shows the amount of water lost from the body of a student on 2 different days. So we have 2 different days. It is 1 person. So they're giving us the amount of water that they lost from their body. They're saying that the student ate the same amount of food and drank the same amount of liquid on these 2 days. The temperature of the surroundings was similar on the 2 days. So they get you have drunk the same amount of liquid, you have eaten the same amount of food, and also the temperature of those 2 days is the same. But however, they notice some differences in the volume of the water that you lose. So what is that volume? So we have in a gray is the 1, then in a dark or black, that is day 2. So we can see that through sweating, remember we can even lose water through sweating, by the way. You lose water through sweating, you lose water through breathing, and you also lose water through urine. So they are saying that during breathing, on day 1, this student lost less water, but on day 2, he lost more water. Then through sweat, on day 1, the student lost very little water. And on day 2, he lost almost, actually he lost 2,000 cubic centimeters of water through sweating alone. Then what of the urine? They have also given us this data here. Now, what am I doing? What I'm doing is I'm trying to interpret for you the data, because they can ask you a question that describe the data given to you. They give you a bar graph, they ask you, describe it. So describing, you just tell us what you're seeing. That on day 1, the student lost 1,000 cubic centimeters of water. On day 2, the student lost 1,500 cubic centimeters of water through breathing alone. Then you can also now compare, when did this student lose much water and through which process? So you can clearly see here that this student lost much water on day 2 and through sweating. That is when he lost much water. He lost much water on day 2 through sweating. Then he lost the least amount of water still on that day 2 through urine formation. Now then you have now to start linking up the dots. On day 1, he lost much in urine, but less in sweat. Also average through breathing. Then on day 2, he lost much through sweating and less through urine. So there is a relationship here. When you lose more through sweating, then you lose less through urine. I think you've seen that relationship there for day 2 and also for day 1. But remember, they said the weather, the temperature was the same. The amount of water drank was the same. The amount of food eaten was also the same. Now the question is, why is there this difference? We shall find out. So they're saying that the total volume of water lost on day 1 was this. How much water was lost on day 2? Sure, you're working. Yes, students, let's get to work. Roman number 2. Roman number 1. We want the total amount of water lost on day 2. So you do some calculations there. On day 2, let me display the graph again, the whole of it. So the graph is like that. You can channel your answers through the chat. So I want the total volume of water lost on day 2. How much water did this student lose on day 2? Waiting for your answers through the chat. People are giving me 4,000. 4,000. All of us seem to be giving us 4,000. Okay. So the calculation is simple. What is it? You just get, because on day 2 you get 1,500 plus 2,000 plus 500. Then you get 2, you get 4,000 cubic centimeters. Now in this case, you even have to write the units. Otherwise, don't just say 4,000. 4,000 what? You always Don't ignore the units. Okay. Then Roman number 2. The student did much more exercise on one of these days than on the other. On which day did he do more exercise? Give 2 reasons for your answer. Over to you, dear students. They are saying that this student did a lot of exercise on one of the 2 days. So according to you, which day did this student do a lot of exercises? And giving a reason for your answer. Remember, now we are probing, why is it that the volume of water secreted during these different days is different, yet all the conditions were the same? Now they have given us one answer. They're saying there is a day this student did a lot of exercises. So which day was that, and what is the reason? If you're ready, you can show your hand. Then others are writing through the chat room. Let me read the responses in the chat room. Day 2, because he lost a lot of water. That is from Ali. Then day 2. Then let me see. I'm trying to scroll down. Stephen is saying day 2 because he lost a lot of water. Because he lost a lot of water through sweat. Because much water is lost through sweat. Because he lost much water through sweating. Okay. Okay. Day 2, high sweating and breathing. Day 2, because he lost a lot of water through sweat and breathe and breathing. Okay. I'm liking the response. Edith is saying because day 2, because he lost a lot of water through sweat. Okay. Okay. Day 2, because he sweated more, meaning he used a lot of energy there. Kelvik is saying day 2, because in doing exercise, you lose a lot of water through sweating. Then in exercise, you breathe a lot, hence losing a lot of water. Okay, so let us see. So most of you, all of you are saying day 2. No one is saying day 1. Now, let us first look at the biology behind the exercise. When you do exercise, you breathe faster. And remember, we lose water through sweating. So it means the more you breathe, the more water you lose actually. Remember, you take in dry water, dry air, then this air is moistened by your lungs. Then you expel out this air when it is moist. So it means that the more you breathe, the more water you lose. So it means that when during exercise, you lose a lot of water through sweat, so through breathing. That is one. Then there could be also another reason. Because we are saying day 2, he lost a lot of water through sweat. That one I have explained. Because during the exercise, there is increased rate of sweating, which results into increased rate of water loss through sweating. Sorry, through breathing, sorry. Then during sweating, we can also see that on day 2, he lost a lot of water through sweat. Why did he lose this water through sweating? Remember, when you're involved in an exercise, there is accumulation of heat in your body. And this heat must be expelled out of your body. And the quickest way of expelling heat out of your body is through sweat. As the water is getting out, it is getting out with the excess heat. So it means it is also true that during the exercise, people tend to sweat a lot so that they can lose the excess heat that is being generated in their bodies. So that is also correct. It is day 2 because he lost a lot of water through sweating. And it is true during sweating, there is a lot of heat generated in the body, resulting into increased rate of sweating so that we can lose this excess heat in the body. Okay. Then I think those are the two reasons: breathing and sweating. Okay. Of course, you actually even you notice that on days when you are very active, like maybe you have gone to the play field to do athletics, maybe it is sports day, and you're actively involved in these competitions, you rarely go to the loose for short coat. You rarely, because most of the water you have is being lost through the sweating, because you're involved in an exercise. Okay. Let me see if okay. Now Ali say it is data because there was an increase in metabolic rate. You can't say that one. Why? Because the data that I have given you from this bar graph you're seeing, there is nowhere they have given you something like metabolic rate. So your evidences must be got from the graph directly. Okay. Then Roman number 2, the student did much more exercise. Of course, that one we have finished. And they wanted 2 reasons. We have given the reasons. Increase the rate of breathing during exercise to expel out the excess carbon dioxide and also to take in the oxygen necessary. Then the second reason is there is increased water loss through sweating during exercise. Because during exercise, the body generates a lot of energy, a lot of heat, and this heat must be lost from the body, and it is lost through the sweat. Those are the 2 reasons, and you have to explain them, and I've given you the explanations. You don't just say through sweating. We shall ask a question, how? Okay, then part C, they are saying, state one chemical reaction that produces water in the body. Over to you, students. The chemical reactions that produce water in the body. How was the answer? Stephen is saying metabolism.
During aerobic respiration.
Masa is saying, okay, Dalton is saying aerobic respiration. Evelyn is saying digestion. Evelyn, digestion, no. Digestion does not produce water in our bodies. So it is respiration. Remember the equation of respiration. Glucose plus oxygen, we get carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And actually, to be specific, you have to say through aerobic respiration. So that is the chemical reaction. Okay. And it is not metabolism. A chemical reaction, these are actually metabolic reactions in the body. So you have to specify, to be specific, which metabolic reaction are you talking about. Now here, if they don't use the word chemical reaction, they could have just said metabolic reaction. So it is the same thing. Then part B, Sasra is saying, is there any process apart from that? No, it is only respiration that generates water in the body. Then briefly explain how sweating is important to the body. Over to you. How? Of course, I have mentioned about it. At least I've given you I've given you the answer when I was explaining why is it that on a day when when someone is doing a lot of exercises, they tend to lose a lot of sweat. So how is sweat important to the body? In other words, what is the importance of sweating? Why should one sweat? Who has the answer? Okay. Removes waste products, it cools the body, helps remove excess water from the body, enables remove toxic substances from the body, regulate high body temperature, sweating through waste products are lost, enables the body to release the excess heat, hence cooling it, remove excess water from the body and cool the body, transport minerals. Someone is lying to us that sweating enables transport minerals. No, that one is not true. Helps maintain relatively constant water and salt in the content. That is also not true. Uses excess heat from the body, true. Removes excess water, that is true. Cools the body, that is true. Okay. Okay, so in other words, they're like asking the importance of sweating. The first one, enables the body lose excess water. If you have excess water in the body, you can lose it through sweating. Then it also cools the body. The one I've told you that during the exercise, the body generates a lot of heat energy, and this energy raises the overall body temperature. Therefore, we have to sweat so that as the sweat is getting out of your body, it is also getting out with that excess heat. So in the process, it helps you cool your body. Then others helps us get rid of excess salts in the body. So there are those ones. Cools the body, helps the body get rid of excess water, and also helps the body get rid of excess salts in the body. Then part E, you're saying if the body loses more water than it gains, it becomes dehydrated. So which is true? If you lose more water than you drink, it's like the whole day you've been doing the exercises, you're sweating, you're doing what? Without drinking water. So your body is likely to become dehydrated. And the concentration of the solution surrounding the body cells increases. So it's like your tissue fluid increases. Then I asked him briefly explain how this affects him, body cells. Over to you. How does increased concentration of the tissue fluid surrounding cells affect those cells? How? So here you have to explain in terms of osmosis, if you remember, in terms of osmosis, in terms of plasmolysis, in terms of frenation. Those are the things that you have to use. And how can give us the answer? Someone is saying reduces the rate of cell division. No, that is not true. The body cells shrink because loses water through osmosis. That is correct. The body cells will shrink. The cells become weak. You have to specify what does it mean by a cell being weak. It causes the cells to lose water to the surrounding body fluid, so they shrink. Which is true. They will eventually shrink. Okay, so actually that is what happens. When the tissue fluid becomes concentrated, it means that they are going to drain water from the cells by osmosis. These cells will urinate or they will shrink and reduce in size. And the moment they reduce in size, it means they will not be able to function properly or to do their jobs properly. So that is the question which was helping us somehow revise our topic of excretion. and the homeostasis. Okay, so any question so far? Okay. So it seems there are no questions. Then we can now proceed. So let us now proceed to the next topic. Now, it means that please open your notes, read through what the teacher has taught you under exclusion and homeostasis. Then you convince yourself that now you have at least revised most of the important things in that topic. Then someone is asking that, how does drinking salt water affect me? Which waste product does sweat remove? Now, through sweat, one can even lose lactic acid. Lactic acid can be lost through sweat. And also some urea can also be lost through sweat. Then how does drinking salt water affect someone? Now, drinking salt water, it means you're going to make your tissue fluid, or you're going to make your blood very concentrated. And if you make your blood very concentrated, it means that also your tissue fluids are also going to be very concentrated. And once the tissue fluids are concentrated, remember, the cells are found embedded in these tissue fluids. So this concentrated solution will drain, will attract water from inside of these cells by osmosis. And these cells will end up shrinking and eventually dying. So you don't have to drink salt water. And more so, salt, other than that, it also has very many unhealthy effects. It is associated to high blood pressure, can be associated to high blood pressure. It is also associated to kidney stones, failure of the kidneys to work. So if you still love your kidneys, please stay off too much salt. The food I've given you, take it that is the food with the salt is enough there. Otherwise, if you take more, you're killing yourself. Okay. Someone is asking, how do kidney stones come about? The cells in the kidneys start solidifying to form stones. It happens. Okay. Then I think now we can go to the next question. Someone has a question? Someone has a question? Okay. So they're saying that the brain. So they're saying that so the question is saying the brain and the skin are involved in monitoring and controlling body temperature, which is true. The skin and the brain, all of them are involved in controlling and monitoring body temperature. Then they're saying, describe the parts played by the brain and the skin in monitoring body temperature. Now here, they're saying, describe the parts played by the brain and the skin in monitoring body temperature. Now for us, we first focus on the brain. So they want us to describe the parts played by the brain in monitoring body temperature. And now here, you don't need so many details under this subtopic of the brain. So what you need to know is that it is the hypothalamus that monitors the body temperature in the brain by looking at the temperature of the blood flowing through it. So in the brain, it is the thalamus. Then the skin, obviously, when you look at your skin, it does in controlling and monitoring your body temperature. Like when it gets cold, you go for a sweater, like that. But however, the details of what happens when you are subjected to very cold conditions and what happens when you are subjected to extremely hot conditions, those details, for you in senior 4, you are not supposed to look at them. They were off your bridge curriculum. At least those ones were removed. They saved you from that thermoregulation. But the structure of the skin, they can ask. They'll always draw for you. They cannot ask you to draw the structure of the skin because it is very complicated. Some of you might even take 2 hours to complete just a single drawing. But when they are to set it, they can draw it for you. Then they ask you to label the parts. That is what they can do. They draw it for you, then they ask you to label the parts. Okay, so they're saying that the diagram shows a section through part of the skin. The muscle labeled X controls the flow of blood into the capillary blood, into the skin capillary. So that is muscle X here. So you can see that this muscle X controls the flow of blood to the skin capillaries. Then when they're saying that when X contracts, the flow of blood into the skin is reduced. So we see, they're saying that when this X contracts, the flow of blood into the skin capillary is reduced. So it means that when these muscles contract, they squeeze here. It's like they're like closing. So meaning that now less blood is going out to go to the blood capillaries. And whether that one always happens when it is too hot. When it is too hot, the moment this blood flows near the skin surface, this heat is going to be lost from the blood to the outer surface. So it means that now the more blood flowing through the skin's capillary, the skin surface capillaries, the more blood that flows there, the more heat this blood can lose. So if it is extremely cold, what the skin does, it constricts this muscle here. So this muscle reduces in diameter and also transports less blood. And once the skin surface is receiving less blood, it means that you won't be able to lose a lot of heat through the blood vessels. That's why you see when it is too hot, you can easily see your blood vessels on your skin or even on your hand. But if it is too cold, you can hardly see any blood vessel because of the contraction and relaxation of this muscle X. Then explain explain the following. The role of the mammalian body, the role of muscle X in mammalian body temperature. That's what I have explained it to you. The role of muscle X. Who remembers? Who can rephrase for us? What is the role of this muscle X in controlling mammalian body temperature? Who's ready with the answer? Are we there? Yes, Monica.
Muscle X contracts so as to cause warmth during cold temperature.
How does its contraction cause warmth? That is not true. The contraction does not cause warmth. Yes, Barbara? Barbara? Barbara, we can't pick you. Barbara, sorry, we can't pick you. Sorry, we can't hear you. Your network is breaking. Okay.
The muscle contracts and relaxes in order to regulate.
I still couldn't get you. Okay, now what happens? Let me first see if some people have answered it in the chat. Muscle X controls contraction of hair in response to changes in body temperature. Sharon, muscle X is not controlling the contraction of the hair. You look at it. This muscle is not attached to a hair follicle. It is attached to a skin capillary. This muscle X here.
Okay, sir. It is providing blood to the skin.
Then what is the role of that one in temperature regulation?
Okay, it is like this. The blood also helps in controlling the temperature by either providing warmth or
I'm waiting for responses, students. Yes, Trevor?
Yes, when muscle X, the role of muscle X is to control the amount of water going into the skin capillary.
Amount of blood, please, not water.
I'm sorry, of blood entering the skin capillary. Now, for example, on a hot day, this muscle X will relax, so as much blood enters the skin capillary, so as the heat can go through the skin, and cause it to contract, hence causing blood pass to the capillary, hence less heat is lost through the skin.
Okay, next trial. Now those ones who have names that I can't even recognize, I won't teach you. Make sure you rename your name, rename yourself to a proper name. Okay. So this is what that muscle does. Remember I've told you that on a hot day, you lose a lot of heat from your body on a hot day. Now, if blood flows close to your skin surface, then it is going to lose so much heat to the surrounding. Then, when there is little blood flowing close to your skin surface, you lose less heat. Now, on a hot day, what your body does, your body gains the heat from the surface, from the atmosphere. Like now, in some regions of Uganda, it is very hot. Like even here in Kampala, it is very, very hot. Now, it means that now, my body is getting a lot of heat from the surrounding atmosphere. Therefore, this heat, this excess heat that I'm gaining from the surrounding, I have to lose it. So how does the body ensure that I lose that heat? It is going to bring blood close to my skin surface. In that, blood just radiates from it back to the atmosphere. So it means that now on a hot day, this muscle X would relax so that much blood flows through the skin capillaries. Hot day. Then on a very cold day, this muscle X would contract so that it blocks movement of blood to skin capillaries, therefore preventing your body from losing heat. Remember, outside it is very cold, so you cannot afford to lose more heat because it is very cold outside. I hope that one is clear. So that is the role of muscle X in controlling body temperature. It just controls the amount of blood that is flowing close to the skin surface. If there is much blood flowing close to the skin surface, then the body will lose a lot of it to the surrounding environment. If there is less blood moving near the surface of the skin, then also the body is going to lose little heat. Is that one clear?
Yes, sir. But the name of muscle X.
Now people are asking the name of the muscle X. Now, the name of these muscles, we don't need them now. We don't need these details. Otherwise, if we give you a lot of things, they tend to complicate the biology and you end up hating the subject. But you don't need the name of this. That's why even it was never labeled in the question. It was never labeled. And they have not asked you to give the name of that muscle. So we don't need those details. Someone is proposing erector muscle. It is not an erector muscle, please. It is not. Okay. Then they are saying, what is the role of the sweat glands in controlling mammalian body temperature? Someone has a question? Or someone has forgotten to mute themselves? Okay, so now we want to understand the role of the sweat glands in controlling body temperature. Who can tell us what is the role of the sweat glands in controlling body temperature? Someone is saying to produce sweat. Someone is saying Sharon is saying, but teacher, at times it is hard to answer something we don't know. What is it? Of course, something you don't know, then you can't answer. For us, we are after the biology that is there. Someone is saying, let's out the sweat to reduce body temperature. Someone is saying, erector pili muscle. Okay, absorb sweat. Lina is saying the sweat glands become more stimulated, hence produce more sweat that regulates high body temperature and vice versa. Shanita is saying they produce sweat. Hamza Abdul Hussein is saying release sweat in hot temperatures to regulate body temperature. Okay. Jamil, Emilia Joy is saying to produce sweat when it is hot, hence leading to cooling. Okay. Now, here, how do you approach this question? They are saying, explain the role of the sweat glands in the control of the mammalian body temperature. Therefore, you simply tell us that on a hot day, the sweat glands secrete more sweat, which sweat is lost through the skin together with the excess heat from the body. So that is the connection, that much sweat is secreted, and when this sweat is being lost through the skin, it is lost alongside the excess heat from the body, hence resulting into cooling of the body. So in your answer, I must capture these things. I must capture that it produces sweat when it is too hot. Then I must also capture that as this sweat is being lost from the skin, through the skin, it goes with heat. It is lost alongside the heat, after which it results into cooling of the body. So those are the things that must appear in your answer. Okay, let me read more responses in the chat. To produce sweat that absorbs the latent heat on a hot day. Trevor, yes, that is correct. It produces more sweat on a hot day, which sweat absorbs heat from the body and it gets out of the body with that heat. Then Alfonso Crut is saying, which part of the body is that muscle found? Which muscle again? We are looking at the skin. This is the proportion of the skin. So whichever part you're seeing here is part of your skin. Then Rionza schools that it produces sweat, which is released out of the skin through sweat duct. Now you have Rionza school. You've not mentioned the connection of this to temperature. So you had to add something about temperature in your answer. If you say it produces sweat, which releases out of the skin through the sweat duct, then how is this one related to regulation of body temperature? Then God's daughter is saying that on cold day, sweat glands are inactivated to produce less sweat. That's increased insulation. Now you're mixing up things here. You're mixing up things. You're saying because there is no connection between sweating and body insulation. There is no connection there. Body insulation is brought about by the hairs and also the subcutaneous fat layer. When it comes to sweat glands, it is just about the sweat and absorbing heat from the body, and this heat being lost through the sweat. Then someone is saying sweat glands absorb excess fluids from the body. No, sweat glands do not absorb excess fluids from the body. They do not. Okay, so I think we can now proceed. Then, what is the role of hair in controlling body temperature? What is the role of the hair still in controlling body temperature? Realize that in all these three questions here, we are focusing ourselves on controlling body temperature and not any other thing. Now, according to you, what is the role of these hairs in controlling body temperature? Okay, let me read responses from the chat. Tabitha is saying on cold days, hair raises up, trapping the surrounding air, which acts as an insulator. Yes, that is correct. Tabitha, that is correct. On cold days, the hair rises or stands, and once it stands, it traps a thick layer of air in between. And this thick layer of air in between acts as an insulator. It's like it covers your body against the heat loss. I'm reading through your responses. Let me see if there is one. Now people are confusing things here. Okay, now the connection between the hairs on your skin and the body temperature is this: that when it is cold, the hairs on your skin stand. And when they stand, it means they're going to trap a thick layer of air in between. Let me use some annotation here to explain this one here. So this is your skin surface. Now, on a cold day, your hairs are going to stand like this. The erector pili muscles. The erector pili muscles are the ones that hold the hairs of your skin, are going to contract, and the hairs on your skin are going to stand. So when they stand, they trap air in between. Air is going to be trapped in between these, in between the standing air, so the standing hairs. So it means that a thick layer of air is going to be trapped. So it's like the whole of this distance is air. Now, this trapped air here is going to serve as an insulator, protecting your body from losing heat to the surrounding atmosphere. Because it would be very difficult for heat to move from inside your skin, penetrate, and eventually reach the surface. It's going to be very difficult. But what happens on a hot day? On a hot day, assuming this is your skin, now the hairs on a hot day are going to lie flat on your skin. They will lie flat like this, your skin. They will lie flat like this. So when they lie on your skin, it means that now they're going to trap a very thin layer of air. So they will trap a thin layer of air. So when they trap a thin layer of air, it means that heat will easily penetrate this thin layer of air and you lose it to the atmosphere. That is the connection between your hairs and also the temperature regulation. I hope that one is clear. Okay. Then Nilena is saying, is it necessary to put in the thin and the thick layer in the answer? And that is why the answer is. The answer is in the thickness and the thinness of the air that is trapped. So that is why the answer is. If you don't use these terms thin and thick, then you may find yourself losing some marking points. So the usage of the word thin and thick are very crucial. You simply say that cold day, the hairs stand and they trap a thick layer of air, hence insulating the body against heat. Then Anita is saying a confused contraction and relaxation. Now, it is not the hairs that contract and relax. No. It's the muscles that are holding these hairs that contract and relax. Like for instance here, only that here that muscle was not shown, but would find a muscle here. Would find a muscle here holding this hair. Okay, so it is the muscle holding the hair that contracts, not the hair. So when and these muscles, now for these ones, you need to know their names because sometimes they can ask. They're the ones they call the erector pili muscles. When these erector pili muscles contract, then the hair stands. That happens on a cold day, and vice versa. Okay. Okay. Then okay, then yes, that's it. Then I think now we can proceed. Okay. So that also was a very good question from homeostasis, on the topic of homeostasis. Okay, now let us now go to at least one question. Having graph, then we finish with this one here. Suppose finish by 4. So this question here. Now I want you to, in the chat, to describe for me this graph. We are answering part A. Describe the maize plant. Who can describe for us? First, you can put your answers in the chat. Or if you type, first write it down. When I give you a chance, reading out your responses, you read for us what you'll have written on the piece of paper. Then we compare, and I see how to guide you. So 5 minutes. I want everyone to answer part A, either in the chat or you can first write on a piece of paper. And when I give you the opportunity, you read out your answers. So I'm seeing some responses here. So at least I've seen one person who has described it very well, and that is Stephen. Was described. I beg your pardon? Yes, please. Stephen? I can't hear you. Also, Paul has described it very well. The descriptions have to be very brief and precise. They have to be very brief and precise. Like Stephen and Paul have described them. You don't have to use a lot of words. And there are words which I always discourage. Don't use words like slight, almost, drastically. Don't use those words. Only use words like increased gradually or rapidly and remains constant. Those are the words that you use. So, and also when you're describing, you have to quote the figures on the horizontal axis accurately. These figures from 0 up to 10, you must quote them accurately and correctly. Therefore, you'd say that from 0 to 1, this one here, there is that decrease. And this decrease is gradual. Therefore, and it is important even to describe your graphs in bullets. Don't write as if you're writing a paragraph or a story. What? No, just create bullets. Bullet 1, from 0 to 1 week, the dry weight decreases gradually. Full stop. You have made your point. Then you open another bullet. From 1 to, I think it is about from 1 to, I think the whole of this one, I can take it as rapid. From 1 to around 9. From 1 to 9, the dry weight increased rapidly, full stop. Then from 9 to 10, the dry weight remained constant, or the dry weight remains constant, full stop. Don't use very many words. Slight. Why do you use the word slight? Always avoid using that word slight. Okay. Then don't use words like at the start. Quote the figures given there accurately. Don't say at the start, this happens. No. Quote the figures. Say from this to this happened. From this to this happened. Like that. I hope that one is clear. Then now, when we go to part B is saying account for observed pattern of growth. Now, when they say account, the word account is the same as explain. So in other words, they want you to explain the changes that you have described. That is what they want you to do. They want you to explain the changes that you have described up there. When you say that from 0 to 1 weeks to 1 week, the dry weight of the maize seedling decreased gradually. Then give us a reason like that. So how would you go about this question? You would say that from 0 to 1 week, the dry weight of the maize seed decreased gradually because, then you give the reason for that initial reduction. Then you finish that point. Then another paragraph will now be for the rapid increase. You'd say from 1 to 9 weeks, the dry weight of the maize seedling increased rapidly because you also give that explanation. So that is how you go about to that graph. Now, what now is the biology behind that explanation that should include in your answers? Yes, Edith?
No, teacher. When we are describing the graph, do we use the bullets or we use the word to?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, but in most cases, I find using bullets simple. And you have to keep your work as simple as possible. So it is better to use bullets. Though it is not the rule, but in my thinking, bullets are better.
Okay, teacher. Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. Okay, so when you have your seed, you put the seed in the soil. This seed absorbs water by imbibition. After absorbing the water by imbibition, then this seed now starts to the enzymes are activated, and these enzymes now start to break down the stored food to provide the energy for the embryo to emerge out. So during this breakdown of the stored food, the overall dry weight or the overall dry mass of the seed decreases. Why does it decrease? Because we are breaking down the food that was stored in the seed and converting it into glucose. And this glucose is going to be respired to provide energy for the embryo to develop. So that is why we observe this reduction in the dry weight. It is because during that time, there is breakdown of stored food to provide energy for the seed to germinate. So that is the reason for the initial gradual decrease from 0 to 1 weeks. Then why later does it increase rapidly to a maximum? The reason why it increases rapidly to a maximum, when this seed was breaking down the food that was stored in it, this food was being taken to the growing embryo. Then when the embryo emerges out, it forms the first leaves. After forming the first leaves, then now the leaves start trapping sunlight energy And then the seed now, or the plant now starts making its own food. So as it is making its own food, it is adding on more parts or even forming more leaves. So all of these are going to result into the overall increase in the dry weight of the seedling. It is because when the embryo emerges out, more plant parts are formed, including the leaves themselves. So these leaves and other plant parts that are now being formed result into overall increase in the dry weight of the seed. That's why we see that there is that rapid increment, or there's that rapid increase in the dry weight. It is because the seedling has put on leaves. These leaves are now making the plant make its own food rather than relying on the one that was stored. So as this plant is making its own food, it is making new parts, which new parts add up to the overall dry weight of the seedling. Then, why does it then reach a maximum and remain constant? Now, it reaches time and remains constant there. Now, why does it remain constant? Of course, now the plant has fully matured. When the plant has matured, it has put on all the leaves it needs. Therefore, it is not adding on any other thing. Then the weight or the dry mass remains high and constant at that level, that is week 9 to week 10. Then I'm sure if this graph was to proceed, eventually the dry weight will decrease gradually. That means you have maybe harvested the maize fruit from the plant, resulting into its overall reduction in the dry mass. Now, this dry weight means that they get the whole plant and weigh it. They dry it and weigh it and see how it weighs. Okay, so that is the explanation.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes?
Why does it remain constant?
It remains constant because it has reached maturity. Therefore, it is not forming any new parts. I hope I have answered you.
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Now, Lena, Asasila Lena, the reason you're giving is not for this graph. You're saying number of cells developing is equal to the ones dying out. No, that is not for this graph. For your reason now is coming from the graph of growth in animals, the population growth. Yours is coming from the population growth. Then Trevor is saying, won't it form fruits at maturity? Yes, of course, all the fruits are the ones that are adding up to that high weight, high overall dry weight. Because we expect maize plants to start fruiting at around week 9 and also week 10. Okay. Then name the growth pattern illustrated. This one is called, the growth pattern is called the sigmoid growth curve, or the sigmoid growth pattern. That's how it is called, sigmoid.
SP.
It is written as this sigmoid growth curve. Then what is seed dormancy? Now these are also the things that you have to revise in your notes. Seed dormancy, a state where if a viable seed or a state where a normal seed fails to germinate under necessary conditions, or when all conditions necessary for germination are provided. That is what we call by seed dormancy. You provided a seed, the seed is normal, it is not dead, it is not what is very normal. You provide all the factors necessary for germination to take place, that is water, oxygen, and warmth, but still the seed refuses to germinate. That is what we call seed dormancy. A state where a viable seed fails to germinate when provided with all the conditions necessary for germination to take place. Okay, then we give the causes of seed dormancy. These causes of seed dormancy, how we can brainstorm them. What do you remember? What are the causes of seed dormancy? Yes, students, what are the causes of seed dormancy? Elena was asking the meaning of the word sigmoid. Sigmoid means letter S. That's the meaning of the word sigmoid, letter S. Because the graph is in shape of letter S, therefore it is sigmoid. Causes of seed dormancy. There is I'm reading your responses. There is hard seed coat, presence of inhibitor substances, hard tester, premature seeds. If the seed is damaged. Now, Shanita, if you say that damaging of the seed causes seed dormancy, then you've not understood the meaning of the word seed dormancy. Because we said that seed dormancy, the seed must be normal. It must not be damaged. Then Kelvik is saying light, temperature. Now, how does light bring about seed dormancy? How does temperature bring about seed dormancy? Prematurity, damaged embryo. Still, if the seed is damaged in any way, then that is not seed dormancy. Someone is saying lack of sufficient oxygen. Remember, we are saying that all the conditions must be provided for us to call it seed dormancy. Dryness of the soil is also wrong. Why? Because water is necessary for germination to take place. And if you provide these conditions and the seed fails to germinate, then that's what's called dormancy. But you can't say, you can't get your seeds, then you keep them in a place without water. And then they fail to germinate, and you say that those seeds are undergoing seed dormancy. No, they're not dormant because you've not provided them with the necessary conditions. But if you provide them with necessary conditions for germination to take place and they germinate, then that was never dormancy. Okay. So there are things like hard seed coat, premature embryo, things like, let me first get the ones, have prolonged storage. Someone is saying extreme temperatures. Food chain. Oh my God. Now, where is the connection, Rachel? What is the connection between the seed dormancy and the food chain? Rachel, are you there? Rachel, are you there? Anyways, we can proceed. Okay, so I've told you, I've given you hard seed coat, premature embryo, presence of germination inhibitors. There are substances that can be present in the seed and they prevent them from germinating. Then also absence of germination promoters There are those chemicals that must be present for germination to take place. So if they are absent, the seed will also be dormant. Yeah, those ones. Then also they can ask you how seed dormancy can be broken. So those are the things that you'll find out in the notes. So this question sometimes these questions can trigger you on what to read in your notes as you're making revision. Okay, so I will attend to some few questions, then we call it a day. So any questions as far as today's work is concerned? Loris is saying, what are germination inhibitors? And the word inhibit means stopping. So germination inhibitors, these are the chemicals that can prevent or that can stop the seed from germinating. Those are the inhibitors, germination inhibitors. Any other question? Okay, so since there is no response from you people, yes, Lena?
Teacher, I was trying to ask if the graph is in shape of F, do I say sigmoid?
No, those graphs are not there. We have only two graphs. We have a sigmoid curve and a J-shaped curve. So it is either sigmoid or J-shaped curve. So don't think that all letters have graphs, no. How can seed dormancy be broken? How can seed dormancy be broken? Allowing after ripening period. That means after harvesting your plants or your seeds, you first keep them so that the embryo can mature. That is, if the cause of the dormancy was immature embryo, then you can break the hard seed coat physically by either cracking it, or you can soak the seeds in water so that the seed coat can soften, or you can chill. Sometimes we call it chilling. There are some seeds where you have to keep them under extreme cold conditions for them to germinate. So they call it chilling. You can soak the seeds in acid. Some seeds can have to be soaked in acids so that the hard seed coat can be broken. Other seeds have to be exposed to extreme, very high temperatures, that the dormancy can be broken down. Those are some of the ways how dormancy can be broken down. Okay. Someone is asking for types of seed dormancy. There are no types of seed dormancy. Those ones are not there. Okay, so today is enough. Of course, we cannot have all the time we need in the world to go through everything. But I believe that the little we have discussed is going to help us get the concepts that we need to pass the biology. Otherwise, I have to wish you a nice day and also success in your exams.